UFC 299 actually is stacked. And the reason I say actually is because a lot of fans go crazy when it comes to just a regular pay-per-view like UFC 296, and they'll call it the best card of the year by far, when the reason they're saying that is because they've been conditioned by the UFC with mediocre to trash card after trash card over and over and over again, just so that when they get something that's okay, they pull their hair out and bounce off of the wall with energy. And this is actually something that does deserve credit. So I'm going to give the UFC credit for putting together such an amazing card that's actually maybe worth $80. All right. Now, again, if you're going to make fans pay $80, at least us American fans, then you better be stacking it every time. Like, this should be what we always get. I know some of the fans are going to be saying, be grateful, buddy. You better thank your lucky stars that you're getting this card. This should be a once in 10-year type of thing. Well, I disagree. Again, $80 is a lot of money. Just give the fans what they fucking want. Okay? So let's talk about this card. It's an amazing card. There's only a couple of issues with it, which I'm going to rant about because it is kind of fun to rant sometimes. Okay? If you haven't noticed, I like to go on a rant every now and then. But before I go on those rants, let me just read you how many amazing fights there are on UFC 299. Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera 2. Jack Della Maddalena and Gilbert Burns. MVP versus Kevin Holland. Geoff Neal and Ian Garry. Our boy Ian Garry is making his return. Song Yadong and Petr Yan. Curtis Blaydes, Jailton Almeida. RDA, Mateusz Gamrot. Am I missing any? I don't think I am. Oh, yeah, Kyler Phillips and Pedro Munoz is also on the card. And we also have Katlyn Chookagian and Maycee Barber. Let me just get the first issue out of the way, okay? Because I'm going to talk about how great these fights are, and I'm going to talk about another concern that I have. I have a couple concerns. The first being that on the UFC website, it says that Katlyn Chookagian and Maycee Barber is going to be the co-main event. And normally, people might see that and say to themselves, all right, well, they haven't added all the fights to the card yet. They're obviously going to boot that to the prelims, right? But I could see them doing it. Usually we only have 5 fights on the main card for a pay-per-view, sometimes 6 for a fight night, but rarely ever 6 fights on a pay-per-view. And because of that, they would have to boot one of these amazing fights. Petr Yan, Song Yadong, Geoff Neal versus Ian Garry, Gilbert Burns, Jack Della Maddalena off the main card for Katlyn Chookagian and Maycee Barber. Listen, I'm not going to get too heated about this because trust me, if that actually was the co-main event, just out of pure confusion, I would bang my head against a wall. Why? It has to be. It has to be fitting a status quo. That's the only reason that I can think of. It doesn't sell more pay-per-views. It detracts. And if you're going to charge $80 as a business, wouldn't you want the main card to have the best possible fights? You're really going to take off Petr Yan, Song Yadong from a main card to squeeze in Maycee Barber? And I also don't understand why it's the co-main event. Why are we doing that? Like sometimes, a card will be really good. The main card, it gets better and better and better. The feature fight delivers. The fight before that delivers. And you take a dip in energy with a crappier fight that no one really asked for to begin with. You're pissed about it at first, but then you realize that you haven't been on the edge of your seat. You haven't been expending energy just by being nervous and your heart beating fast and screaming and yelling because you're not that hyped about it. And you can recover before the main event and then you can go crazy again. Okay? So there could be some method to the madness, but that doesn't make money for the UFC. So why the fuck are they putting that as the co-main event? Please explain to me any other reason than they just do it because it's them trying to be inclusive. But that's the only reason I can think of. That's not a big issue. I'm saying I'm grasping at straws here. The other issue is that I'm a little bit concerned that UFC 300 is going to be understacked. I wanted Petr Yan and Song Yadong on UFC 300. I was going to be okay with UFC 299 just being like, okay, kind of like UFC 296, as long as 300 was going to be unbelievably stacked. I was willing to make that sacrifice. And I know that some of you guys are going to say that's full of horseshit. You would be ranting on your YouTube channel if UFC 299 wasn't stacked as well like you always do. But I really mean that. But again, the UFC may make some decisions that are just completely ridiculous sometimes. But I don't think they would do that. I think that they know that UFC 300 is important, and they're going to try their best to deliver. I still think it's going to disappoint a little bit, but they must have some other fights lined up that we don't know about. I'm just a little concerned because also a lot of the champions that could be on that card, or at least the exciting champions, they're all fighting within a couple of months of that card, before that card, and they just won't be prepared. But now it's time to break these fights down. Let me just give some early predictions. So we're going to start with Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera. I think O'Malley is going to make this look pretty easy. Now, I don't think he's going to knock Chito out. If he does, then that's just proof that the MMA gods are cold and they're evil and they love the clout cow poster boy O'Malley, who is just not the best representation of a champion. I know people hate when I say that because what's a champion? A champion's just the best fighter in the division, and he's a fucking epic fighter. I'll give you that. But man, he's just not that cool, dude. He's just not that cool, and he's not scary. All right, he's not scary at all. So there's that. The reason why I think O'Malley's going to make this look easy is because I rewatched Chito's fight against Pedro Munoz, and I'm thinking about his fight with Corey Sandhagen and a bunch of the other guys that he's fought. And he just has not been able to look that great against the elite levels of competition. Like he got sunned against Corey. He didn't have any success in that fight. I know Corey was shooting takedowns, and that can throw you off guard, and that brings a whole other element, a different look. Now you got to think about that. And Corey Sandhagen's a different fighter who doesn't really commit as much when it comes to punches and is a better grappler as well. But at the same time, man, he didn't look that great against Chito either. Like, it was a competitive fight. He definitely won. Clearly, his jab looked amazing. He still proved to have a granite chin, and he didn't get cut once. And I picked Pedro to win that fight, okay? And in a way, he proved me wrong. But at the same time, Pedro Munoz is like a short, stocky guy that's sitting right there in front of him the entire time. They're in the center of the cage, and O'Malley's going to be moving around a lot. He's got nasty long-range weapons. He's got a wider variety of attacks, okay? And he's just simply better, man. Like, you don't have to look so far to just tell that O'Malley's just the better striker. And Chito is a little bit stationary, moves a little slowly. Sometimes he's a little bit too technical for his own good. I think he could actually win this fight if he just goes out there like a fucking menace and just runs forward at O'Malley like I've been saying Marvin Vettori should do to his opponents. I don't think he would get KO'd. Or maybe just get a hold of O'Malley in the clinch and just fucking tee off on elbows, you know, just put his chin out there. All right. I know he could get sniped and you know what I mean? Like, I could see it happening, but ultimately I think he's going to fight how he usually fights. I don't think he's going to take O'Malley down more than maybe once, and O'Malley will be fine if that happens because he's improved. And I think O'Malley's just going to stay at range and pick him apart and not allow himself to just stay in the middle of the cage with Chito and trade jabs back and forth, and back and forth. All right? Yeah, Chito is just going to be a little bit too technical for his own good here. So I'm going to go with O'Malley to win this fight. Listen, if you're getting sunned by Corey and you're not having any big moments in that fight and you're going tit for tat with Munoz, I know O'Malley went and had a real shitty fight against Pedro Munoz, but at the same time, it's like that wasn't even a fight to begin with. All right? I think O'Malley would have done a lot better against Pedro. So he'll probably win by decision. I want Chito to win. I really want him to go out there and knock O'Malley out or just get the victory and become a champion. He's one of my favorite fighters, but I'm going to have to give O'Malley credit where it's due. He's just on another level when it comes to the striking, the distance management, and he looked amazing at executing against Aljamain Sterling, executing a game plan under the pressure, his first ever title fight, passed the test with flying colors, stuffed the takedowns in a seemingly nightmare matchup, and now this is kind of a tailored matchup for him. The only reason to pick against him is the fact that Chito has a granite chin and anything can happen. But yeah, I'll go with O'Malley to win this fight by decision. MVP versus Kevin Holland. Now, Kevin Holland might just go in here with a vengeance because he just stunk it up last time against JDM, and he was kind of the guy to blame because I think he didn't want to engage in the pocket. And he's had a bunch of good fights. I'm not calling him a boring fighter at all, but I think this is going to be a boring fight, okay? I actually think this is going to disappoint. I just can see it, man. Everyone's going to be super excited. This is a great fight on paper. We should see a lot of flashy techniques going on. But I've seen MVP shit the bed in some of his biggest, most hyped up fights where there's been some trash talk. Kevin Holland's going to trash talk a little bit. And I could just see him stinking it up like he did against Paul Daly back in the day, right? For that big hyped up fight that they had in Bellator. I actually got excited for that. That's one of the rare times Bellator has actually sold a fight properly. But it disappointed big time. And I know that both guys are to blame, for sure. But you got to think of it this way. MVP, he's been knocked out before by Lima. He's had a war with Mike Perry. He's taken damage. I don't think his chin is going to be as good as Kevin Holland. And I think he's going to be a little bit wary of getting hit. And I could just see him making it a point not to get knocked out rather than going out there and putting on a show, because that's kind of why he's being signed. I don't think anyone expects this guy to become a champion. I don't really know if his goal is to become a champion. His goal should be to go out there and put on exciting fights. But for whatever reason, I think both of these guys are going to be too concerned with not getting embarrassed rather than actually winning. So that's what's going to happen. I predict that MVP is going to be playing it super safe. Kevin Holland's going to be complaining to the ref. The ref's going to be looking at Kevin Holland saying, go, you can go at him. He's right there. You can fight him. And Kevin Holland's going to be like, hey, and make him do something. And the fans are going to be waving their flashlights. I can't be the only one that can see this from a mile away. I hope to God that I'm wrong, because it should be a fun fight. It really should be a fun fight if both of these guys just go out there and say, fuck it, let's put on the fight of the night. It should be awesome, because that's kind of what we got between Kevin Holland and Wonderboy. But for whatever reason, I don't know if MVP has that same dog in him. All right, I don't know if he's got the same dog in him that Kevin Holland does, or that Wonderboy did, to be honest. Wonderboy actually has a dog in him, so we'll see, guys. We'll see. Let's get on to the next one. Gilbert Burns and Jack Della Maddalena, okay? Now, I think a lot of you guys are going to disagree with me on this, but I'm going to go with JDM, all right? Now, I saw a comment the other day saying, Lucas, whenever there's a hyped up prospect, you always pump the brakes and you always crap on them. Well, I disagree. I am actually very high on some of the prospects, and I'm high on Jack Della Maddalena. And I'm going to pick him to beat Gilbert Burns. And there may not be that many reasons to do so, because on paper, Gilbert Burns should win this fight because Basil Hoffus gave JDM a run for his money, and Gilbert Burns is a much craftier fighter than the new Basil Hoffus, and he's probably a little bit better on the ground. Well, a lot better on the ground, but I'm just saying offensively, he should be a little bit better. I don't think that he's going to finish JDM if he takes him to the ground. He should be able to take JDM down, but Gilbert Burns has not really shown the best ability to hurt people or submit people. I think JDM's not going to be pulling guillotines left and right. His takedown defense actually looked kind of good. Like, he got taken down a couple of times, but it was the guillotines that were really frustrating to watch, and that was one of the reasons why he got taken down a little bit too often. But his takedown defense was getting better as the fight progressed. His hands are nasty, dude. And I think that's going to be the big difference maker. Gilbert Burns has been through a lot of wars. He's getting up there in age. He had 4 different injuries in the Bilal Muhammad fight. He got injured in multiple different areas. And even before the injury, he looked like shit in the first round, right? I think he got injured in the first round, but he looked like crap early on. I was saying in the build-up to that fight, Gilbert Burns is going to get this done. He's going to have to slip on a banana peel to lose this, but just wait for him to throw his first right hand. That right hand is going to be a piston. It's going to impress all of you. He looked amazing against Masvidal. He looked great against Magny. His first right hand, I knew there was something going on with him. And even though you could kind of look past that loss because of all the injuries, those injuries aren't really going to just go away like that. Sure, he can recover a little bit, but it's still a lot of wear and tear. And a guy that's 37 years old, that's not going to be great for him. All right? He's going to have the experience advantage. He may have some tricks up his sleeve, but because Gilbert Burns is not like this long, rangy striker, he will have to fight JDM in the pocket a little bit, unlike Kevin Holland. And I do think that JDM's going to be able to hurt him and get the better of him in close range. Okay, so I'm going to go with Jack Della Maddalena to win this one based on damage, maybe a couple of knockdowns. And Basil Hoffus must have ate something from the Real Food Cookbook the night before, because he didn't get finished, man. And he got hit with a lot of great shots, and I don't think Gilbert Burns is necessarily going to be able to eat those shots from JDM. So we'll see if he's able to eat his Real Food Cookbook meals in the build-up to that fight. But if he doesn't, I'm going to have to go with JDM. Okay, so JDM's going to get this one done. It's going to be the changing of the guard. Gilbert Burns is still good. I'm not saying he's washed. That's not why I'm picking against him, but I am very high on JDM. And if he gets taken down, I think he'll be able to survive. And his gas tank actually looked pretty good. And remember, in the Basil Hafez fight, I'm talking about his gas tank in that fight, by the way, where he was getting grappled against. In the Basil Hafez fight, I think that was like his second back-to-back weight cut in the span of a couple of weeks. That can't be good for you. So I think I'm expecting the best JDM to date. It should be a really fun fight, though. Ian Garry and Geoff Neal, okay? Now, I was originally going to pick Ian Garry when this matchup was first announced and booked for UFC 292 back in the summer of 2023, but I'm still going to pick him. What am I saying? But I am going to pick him in this matchup. I'm more worried for Ian Garry going into the Geoff Neal fight than I was for him going into the Vicente Luque fight, even with all of the drama surrounding his name. Now, all of that stuff isn't going to be erased. He's still going to be dealing with it. Kevin Holland's on this card. He's been beefing with Kevin Holland. Holland, that is completely tuned into all of the Ian Garry drama. He even got a shirt with Gary's face on it. He knows about the WAG book. They'll definitely beef a bit at the press conference. But because he'll be far removed from all of the drama popping off in the first place, which was a couple of weeks before UFC 296, it's going to be easier for him to maintain his composure. And let's not forget, this dude worried himself sick, all right? He had a stress-induced illness, and that's why he didn't show up on fight week, which really harmed his career, because even though he was at the butt of our jokes, this guy had the opportunity to become the biggest star in the entire sport just by showing up on fight week and actually fucking getting in the cage. And now that he didn't do that, yes, it'll be easier to manage the stress, but he's just never going to have that same opportunity again. And I don't know if he's going to go at Geoff Neal in the build-up to this fight, even though he's had a shirt of Geoff Neal with Geoff Neal's mugshot on it. I think he's going to come back a little bit more humble, which is going to suck. And I know it's good for him to be humble, but again, like, I really liked the idea of this guy turning heel and just doubling down with everything he's already done, because at this point, it's clear that he's not going to separate himself from this really weird dynamic that he has going on behind the scenes. When things are just all out of whack, there's so many red flags. He's not going to separate himself unless he sits in a dark room with Yuri Prohaska. There's no way anything's going to change unless he trains with David Goggins, okay? Listen, Ian Garry, I'm afraid he's going to lay low on fight week, but I hope to God he isn't, okay? Because if he really owns this and he really enjoys his lifestyle, which if he does, fair play to Ian Garry. If he fucking owns this, all right, he'll still come back a big star, but it's a shame he won't have the same moment that he would have had for UFC 296. It'll be good that he's not at the press conference with Strickland or with a Colby Covington, but yeah, I'm going to pick him to win nonetheless. The reason I'm picking him to win is because Geoff Neal has struggled with long-rangey strikers, all right? Now, he got outstruck by Shavkat, but he still had a lot of moments. I think that Shavkat is a guy that's willing to just march forward and get hit like a Terminator on the feet sometimes. And Ian Garry is a little bit more similar to a Wonder Boy and a Neil Magny in the sense that he plays it pretty defensive, all right? And he's got really high output, and I think that's going to be tough for Geoff Neal to deal with. Neal has the chance to go out there and put his lights out, all right? He really wants to punch Ian Garry in the face, and in a way, I'd like to see that happen, but I think that Ian Garry is going to be a little bit too tricky. He's got so many weapons that he can use on Geoff Neal. He's good at keeping his range. This will give him more time to improve as well, and I think he should be able to keep his composure because, again, it'll be a lot easier for this fight week than it would have been for UFC 296. So I'm going to go with Ian Garry to win by decision just to flood the eyesight of Geoff Neal with tons of different long-rangey attacks. He's going to put a jab in his face, and he's going to play it safe as well. So Ian Garry will win this fight by decision. Let's get to Song Yadong versus Petr Yan. Now, this one really worries me. It actually does worry me because this is still a really tough matchup for Petr Yan. And I know it's kind of sad for a guy that we used to talk about as being the Terminator at bantamweight, this unbeatable fighter. And now this is a guy that we want to get an easy layup matchup like an older fighter or a flyweight moving up where he should be able to beat them like Davidson Figueiredo. But if you think about that, that shit is pathetic, bro. If Petr Yan really is who we said he was, because right now, us Yan fans are able to hide behind him losing a close decision to O'Malley and Aljo, and then him getting Merabed. But everyone pretty much gets Merabed because Merab is like an alien, right? Merab's not like a real fighter that fits in reality. His cardio is otherworldly. Like, it's something that shouldn't be possible. So I can deal with him losing to Merab. Okay, I can deal with him losing a close decision to the best striker O'Malley, or getting his back hugged by Aljo and losing the first round because he's a slow starter. If he loses this, then I have to say that he was always kind of overrated, or maybe he just fell off big time. But my point is, he should win this fight, man. He should win this fight. Song Yadong's got nasty power, but I do believe that Yan is a better boxer. I do think that Yan is the superior boxer. I do think that Yan is the superior grappler. Even though Song Yadong outgrappled Chris Gutierrez, I don't think he's going to be able to do that to Yan, who has amazing takedown defense. He's not going to be able to shoot 100 takedowns. He's going to stand up with Yan, and I don't think he's going to drop Yan, okay? I know he's real fast. He's going to hit him. Yan's going to be there to be hit because he's a little bit more stationary than Chris Gutierrez and other guys in the division. But I trust his head movement. I trust his chin. And I think he's got better hands. Yan's taken more damage in his career, though. And that's also why you may want to go with Song Yadong if he's the underdog, just because he really does have a granite chin. And it's like, I could see Yan getting dropped and not Song Yadong, but I'm going to trust in Petr Yan's excellent boxing skills against a guy that's basically the same stature, that's going to strike with him, that's not going to be shooting 1,000 takedowns, and that doesn't have unbelievable output. Like, the way to beat Petr Yan is to just make it insanely hard for him to score any point. He's going to land the leg kicks. He's going to hit you in the face a couple of times. He may trip you with a couple of tie trips, but it's to put an insanely difficult pace on him, just to give him things to think about, and just to make it a living hell for him to score those points. And I don't know if Song Yadong is going to have the output to do that. You know what I mean? Or at least he hasn't really fought with that kind of output in the past. And unless he's picking his shots and being patient, he does overswing sometimes, and I just think that Yan should probably win this fight. If he doesn't, then I'm going to be depressed, and I'm going to be sad, and I'm going to have to accept that we were wrong about him, or that he just fell off, and he's in his early 30s. Falling off in his early 30s is so tragic, dude. So I'm praying that Yan gets this one done, and if he does, beating Song Yadong, he'll be one fight away from that title shot. You know what I mean? So let's just cross our fingers and hope that he can get this one done. On to the next one, Curtis Blaydes versus Jailton Almeida. Unless Curtis Blaydes goes out there and pulls guard against a jiu-jitsu guy, which is something Curtis Blaydes would always do. He's always taking the dumbest approaches to these fights. He should probably win this one. I was picking Jailton Almeida when that fight was originally announced, but then he stunk it up against Derek Lewis. And Derek Lewis has been finished on the ground multiple times in his career. And listen, I know that Derek Lewis just has a weird ability to do weird things sometimes, but I can't be confident in Jailton Almeida finishing Curtis Blaydes. Even though I know he could take him down with that speed, I can't be confident that he'll be able to do anything with it. And I do think it's going to be a lot harder to take down Curtis Blaydes. And I just know that. The way I was picking Jailton Almeida to win in the original matchup was to land a good shot on the feet, to catch the plotty man off guard, and then shoot a takedown. But I saw him let go a couple of combinations against Derek Lewis, and it wasn't anything to write home about. So I think that Jailton Almeida has a chance, but I'm picking Curtis Blaydes to either outdamage him or to knock him out. And I actually kind of want to see that now. After that horrible performance, I still like Jailton Almeida. He's the hungriest fighter in the UFC. And if you're the hungriest man in the UFC, like, there's just always a way for them to grit down and stink it up and not give a fuck if they make it entertaining. And I could see that maybe happening. But Curtis Blaydes is probably going to knock this dude out, or at least just outstrike him on the feet. So, or he could take him down, dude. Or he could maybe take him down. And the last couple of fights that I'll just give my quick predictions for are Mateusz Gamrot and RDA, Kyler Phillips and Pedro Munoz, and Macy Barber versus Caitlin Chikugian. I'm going to go with Macy Barber. I think she's just younger. She's a little bit tougher. I'm going to go with Pedro Munoz, and I just think I'm going to pick him because he's a little bit crafty. I'm going to go with the crafty vet, Pedro Munoz, to get it done. He's still got a granite chin. He looked all right against Chito, and I think this is going to be a bit of an easier matchup. Kyler Phillips doesn't have the best hands. He will be tricky to deal with because he's really long and rangy. But, man, I just need to see some better boxing from him. And, of course, I'm going to go with Mateusz Gamrot just because he is in his prime. He's been looking a little bit better on the feet lately. He actually looked good against Rafael Fiziev. His right hand is money, and it's a 3-rounder. His cardio is going to be great. RDA is basically like a poor man's Mateusz Gamrot with a little bit higher output on the feet, but less effective these days. Not as fast as he was back in the day, without really the best finishing ability. And Mateusz Gamrot doesn't really finish people. Man, I really wish they booked Gamrot versus Benoit Saint Denis, so there would be no way for Gamrot to scam his way to victory. But I think Gamrot should get it done. He still is a top 10 worthy lightweight. He's got the skills. I don't think he's going to finish the fight, but he should be able to win in the stand-up and in the grappling, just slightly at least. So Gamrot's going to get it done. Kind of a pointless matchup because if he wins, it does nothing for him, right? Beating RDA at this point doesn't put you that close to a title fight. And if RDA wins, he's still going to be like 2 or 3 wins away from a title fight, right? Because there's a lot of guys that are right on the verge of getting it. So not the best matchup, but it should still be okay. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And before I go, I just wanted to make this announcement. The Lucas Tracy MMA Awards are going down tomorrow. I'll be going live Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So if you guys are interested in tuning in, I'll be giving out like 20 different awards. Fighter of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Fight of the Year, Knockout of the Year, People's Champ Award, which I posted on my community tab, and you guys can vote on the People's Champ Award. And yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. Stay tuned for that. So until next time.